Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, yo. How's it going?
I'm doing pretty good, Luke. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just showed up from Phoenix, literally 15 minutes ago. So now I'm here and I'm about to talk about quite possibly my favorite animated movie of all time. How to Train Your Dragon last week was absolutely one of my favorite animated movies, but this one actually might be my favorite animated movie of all time.
Yeah?
Yeah. So, for everyone who doesn't know, we're talking about Your Name today, the Japanese animated film from 2016, directed by Makoto Shinkai. He has directed Weathering with You, Suzume, which came out this year. Your Name is a film about two characters, Taki and Mitsuha, who, by miraculous standpoints, end up switching bodies randomly in their dreams, and they live throughout each other's day, and it follows this ultimately chaotic storyline of almost town disaster with a meteor falling and their love story woven in between. And so, yeah, it's a very intricate film that is very beautiful, to say the least.
It is. It's one of my favorite, out of the hundreds of movies that do the, switch body Freaky Friday trope, I like this one the best just because they switch frequently throughout the movie. It's not like ones where they'll switch at the beginning and then the entire point is to switch back at the end. You really get to feel both of these characters grow because they switch back and forth so much.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily presented as a conflict. So many the Freaky Friday stuff is always presented as a conflict, but this is more depicted as an annoyance at the start from their day-to-day life to then being a growing development and how they interact with each other's bodies and how realistically they end up living with each other and then living without each other towards the end of the film. So
my favorite bit about that is it starts with this montage of them just getting really upset, and then they're drawing all over each other's faces, and it's fool or idiot, and it's
Yep, absolutely. And so actually, I don't know where else to start. I have a big notes page this week for this film because I love it so much. So one thing I want to talk about this film, also we're going to spoil this film heavily. This film is on, I can't remember I own it. I can't remember what you can watch it on.
I watched it on Crunchyroll.
Crunchyroll, so it's on Crunchyroll if you have Crunchyroll, if you're an anime fan. If you're an anime fan, you've probably seen this. So I want to talk about many themes of this film, but one of the things that I want to talk about mostly in this film is the use of foreshadowing, because I think it's the most excellent use of foreshadowing I've seen in a long time. So there's minimal aspects of it. So one thing you just mentioned is the writing. So this is going right into the climax of the film, but so throughout the entire film you see that they are writing on each other because Taki has his notes diary and she has her diary that she writes in. Ultimately, the way that they can kind of communicate with each other when they wake up the next morning is by writing on each other's bodies. And so you start off with, who are you? And then we have the name Mitsuha written on Taki's hand. And that is an immediate foreshadowing for the climax of the film when they're standing on top of the mountain that overlooks the shrine and the town. I'm trying to remember the town's name on top of my head right now, but it starts with an I. But and so when you see that climax, we have that moment of them writing each other's names so they wouldn't forget. And we see that that's the one chance that she's not able to write her name on his hand, and he instead writes. And my biggest idea is the most heartbreaking point of the film, the "I love you" on her hand. And that is completely foreshadowed by the amount of writing they do on their bodies. And there's immense amounts of foreshadowing throughout the entire film. We have so many moments of, we see the PA system early in the film. We see that one character, Tessie. I can't remember if it's Tessie or the other guy. I can't remember who the characters' names are on top of my head right now. But he mentions that he's going to go learn, explosions at the beginning of the film. And then he ends up using explosions later in the film. We always talk about Kuchi Kamizake, or trying to think of the word, all these ideas of these heritage and these what am I trying to say? All this stuff that the grandma expects, and the grandma's mentioning how you're dreaming right now, how she ends up finding out that Taki is in Mitsuha's body. So much of that is foreshadowed way early in the film, literally within those very first sequences. They're talking about their English class where they learn about the word twilight, and that is the end up climax of the film. and then like ultimately like Itamori's history is completely, which is the town's name, Itamori, is completely also foreshadowed, where they talk about like how like the reason that Shrine is there is because another disaster once hit, and then it looks like a meteor crater, and it is a meteor crater. Like again, this film exists with foreshadowing, and there's even like a poster of architecture in Taki's room that expresses his love for architecture way beginning like the film, because at the end of the film you realize that he's looking to get a job in architecture. All of this stuff is foreshadowed. We see his drawings, we see all this stuff, and I think that Makoto Shinkai is a director that has such a love for storytelling, and it's very much expressed in this film.
Absolutely. There's so many setup and payoffs, and one of the bigger twists at the end is they're not only switching bodies by like space, they're also switching by time. Taki is living 3 years ahead of Mitsuha, and one of my favorite ways it's so subtly talked about is when they switch body. Mitsuha inside of Taki's body says something along the lines of like, "Oh wow, this dinner is like significantly more expensive than it should be," you know. And then the side characters talk about, oh yeah, maybe from years ago, but this is pretty standard pricing, and that completely flew over my head the first time I watched this.
I don't even think of that stuff, you know.
This is the second time I've seen this movie, and just getting to watch it a second time, really, like knowing the twist, like I loved watching like all the setup and payoffs, and it really follows Chekhov's gun. And for those of you who don't know who that is, it's one of my favorite things. I'm going to grossly oversimplify it, but basically it's a trope in storytelling where if you show a picture of a gun in the first act of the movie, it has to be fired in the third act of the movie, or else why would you put the gun there, you know? So it's just set up and payoff, and it's something that's done a ton in this movie, and I adore it.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. You can look at Chekhov's gun in the idea of the meteor. You can look at it in the sense of all the foreshadowing within, like, the writing. You can look at it within the switching bodies. You know that has to stop. You can look at it about the braided cords. So much is presented for the audience to realize, and you don't. The first time you watch it, this is one of the best films that has a twist. Like, that time switch is where you finally realize that, oh my God, this isn't just a quirky switching body love story. Mm-hmm. It is a dramatic telling of life and death. And this film, and Makoto Shinkai in general, if anyone knows any of his previous work, like Garden of Words, or even his later work, Weathering with You and Suzume, he's a director that has such a strong love for love.
Absolutely.
And I think that ultimately in this film, we see it in its strongest. I think Your Name is the strongest piece of work, mostly because it feels so delicate and intricate, and I feel like everything that is put there for reasons. Every animation is also, every sequence of animation is absolutely done with like so much intention behind it. Like the singular frames of, like, again, like I said, like the PA system or just the town in general. And in a lot of ways, he wants to offer this like distinguish of their lives. Like we have this this hatred of modernity that Taki has. He has to go to work, he has to find a job, he has to go to school. Like he lives in a big skyscraper with his dad. He wants to kind of escape that. And then we see that same distaste for the past that Mitsuha has. And she hates that she lives in a small town. She hates that there's no cafe. She wants to go be in a big city. And it's also paired by he lives in the future and she lives in the past.
Yeah.
And literally, quite literally. And then the thing is, he practices modernizing the future with architecture, and then she practices remembering the past with her shrines and her braided cords and her sake. All of that is remembered and cared about, and it shows this absolute difference between the two characters, but ending up together and interwoven. I love to say interwoven because it's so much ingrained in the film.
Absolutely.
About time with each other. And I think that these two characters have such a love for each other that they don't even realize, because it's like they share this experience and you don't realize they love each other. I mean, until like that one date that Taki actually goes on with Okudera, I think her name was, and she says, "You've fallen for someone else." And he kind of realizes at that moment, I don't think he realized until then, that he did fall for Mitsuha. Mostly because he has lived literally within her footsteps and she has lived within his, and they can fully understand each other to the point of also not understanding each other and not understanding each other's lives, where they both need to help each other.
Absolutely. I think the one sentence summary of this entire movie is it invokes the feeling of I don't know why I had a British accent then. It invokes the feeling of a dream that you can't quite remember, and it does that absolutely perfectly. It's a story about musubi, which is basically love and happiness, and dreaming of happiness only to forget it when you wake up, because you get busy with you get caught up in the busyness of life, and it's a real, like, it's a fictionized version of a very common thing, because, like, you go to bed and you dream of big things that you're gonna do, and then only to wake up to get caught up in just the stuff that doesn't matter in life, and it's, you know, and then people lose sight of that dream and that love that everyone has, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And this film is very interwoven within the idea of musubi and dreams. So also, I should mention, like, this film is a Japanese animated film, so a lot, I mean, you probably can gather that already, but, like, a lot of the terminology, we're two white boys that, like, might not know all of the terminology and everything like that, but we definitely picked up on it in the sense of the film.
Yeah.
But, like, again, I keep going back to the foreshadowing, but the first line of the movie is like that feeling of having a dream and not able to remember when you wake up, and then the entirety of the end of the film is these two characters not remembering if they know each other or if they know each other from somewhere. It's that idea of you don't know what you're trying to remember, but you know you're trying to remember something, and it really comes in together that these two characters are trying to remember each other.
Absolutely.
And again, so there's so much love I have for this film, and one thing I also want to talk about, because I know we've kind of gone really quick with a lot of the summarizing of the film and the ideas of, like, foreshadowing and products of this movie with Makoto Shinkai, but one thing I also want to talk about is the visuals. This is probably
the visuals.
Like, out of all 2D animation, this is completely 2D animation, by the way. It is gorgeous. It's
stunning.
Every sequence is a painting, and I think that's Makoto Shinkai's, like, almost brand at this point, in the same sense that Wes Anderson has that brand of symmetry and color. Makoto Shinkai is like, you know what? I'm absolutely gonna paint the hell out of this screen and make it look like a damn painting.
The lighting is just incredible.
Immaculate.
Everything about it, you know.
You look at this film and you just, like, you can pause any frame and be like, man, like, that has so much care for it. Everything that you see has been drawn and detailed, and I've heard along the lines of, like, Makoto Shinkai pays his animators really, really well, and, like, the whole studios that put on Makoto Shinkai's films pay him really well because he makes a lot of money in the box office. Like, Suzume was by budget was like 80 million, but it ended up making like 400 million in the Japanese box office, something crazy numbers like that. And Your Name did a very similar aspect. But the thing is, what's going on is that the visuals themselves are very much paired again with the themes. So we start off with Mitsuha, and we start off with Taki and their day-to-day lives, and we see them getting switched between each other as it goes, as the whole plot line of the film unfolds. And it's humorous, it's funny, you get to see all that, like, drama between them, as, like, she's bad at taking orders, and then, like, he is super good at basketball, but beside the point. The visuals are very much paired, is that, like, when Taki is in Mitsuha's body, there's so much shown love and beauty of, like, that natural landscape that it's like, oh my god, look at Itamori's giant lake and the mountains that sprawl with the forests that surround it and the shrines and all the beautiful lighting that is all around there. And then when Mitsuha is in Taki's body, we see that there's an absolute love for the modernity of Tokyo and, like, all the city lights, all the beautiful skyscrapers, the sunset setting through the buildings, and we see how much she loves it and awe when she runs outside and it just pans the entire skyline of Tokyo, and she just can't contain herself, and she's so excited to be in that world of modernity that she is so much longed for. Like, especially when we hear that cafe and she gets to go to that cafe, and that pastry looks so real, like so real, so detailed, because she is looking at it with such an awestruck light and such an awestruck viewpoint. In the same way that when Taki goes to the past and sees this shrine that his grandma, her girl, Mitsuha's grandma, is with, and he just has so much appreciation for what that looks like that entire sequence of that giant crater where they go down to that shrine to offer the sake to their gods. It's beautiful, and that, again, that's a foreshadowing of Suki Kamizake, where you don't realize that, like, they always say that's half of her, and in a lot of ways he becomes half of Mitsuha for the time that they are together when they keep switching bodies. I'm sorry going so many tangents, but this film is so beautiful, and so much things have been done in this film that I can't love enough.
Absolutely. I like how we really get to be shown firsthand how these two characters work together, because if we're going to be honest, at the start of the film, they are both extremely arrogant.
Yeah,
they're both like, this is the correct way to live life, and that's true to everyone. Everyone thinks everyone's the hero of their own story. Everyone thinks that what they're doing is right, you know? No one really goes out and be like, I'm going to do something bad today, you know?
Yeah.
Every single person thinks how they live their life is the way that life should be lived. And this is shown by Taki being like, why don't you stand up for yourself? Why do you let people treat you like that? And Mitsuha's like, why are you so distant? Why do you push everyone away? And
why do you work so much? Yeah.
Yeah, when they switch bodies, they're really showing each other how they live, and they both grow through that, because of course you need to be confident in who you are, and you need to stand up for yourself, and you shouldn't work as much, and you can't be so distant, and you can't push people away. And they're really shown, and like the growth through both of that, and it's stunning, and it's beautiful, and it's really something that I really want to try to like implement into my life, you know?
Absolutely, and I think that they use each other so well, to the point of, I actually wrote this in my notes. So throughout the entire film, we hear that Taki, at the very beginning, he has a temper, like he has a temper. We get shown like one time where he kicks a desk over or something like that. Yeah. But then at the end of the film, when it comes to that climax, when Taki in Mitsuha's body needs to confront her father, he stands up. He goes he's like this is ridiculous. Like, you need to listen to me. You're not listening to me. He realizes that, like, he stood up for himself, and he, in a lot of ways, that he stood up for himself in Mitsuha's body, and her father really didn't listen, and her father never does listen, really, even towards the end of the film. But like, that standing up for himself or herself was imperative in his character tropes and in his need to be a different person. And then additionally, we have so much of Mitsuha's femininity coming in her forwardness, coming in to help Taki get closer with his friends, especially that female friend that ends up helping Taki find Mitsuha's hometown at Itamori, and finding that climax that without her help of getting to know that woman, I think her name is Okudera, but forgive me if I'm wrong.
That sounds correct.
That without her help, or the help of like his friends, Tsukasa, he would have never probably even gotten to Itamori to see what happened, and then he would have forgotten all about Mitsuha, and she would have ended up staying dead. Yeah. And so, like, the help that they both provide each other, and even like small things, like Taki is obviously very athletic, as we see in the basketball sequence, and then when he's running to the shrine to go reconnect with Mitsuha, he trips and falls, but because of his athleticism, he catches himself. And then it's shown later how Mitsuha isn't athletic when she trips and falls, and she falls over
forever and ever and ever.
And so, like, if he would have fallen there, if she was in his body, it's again these small details that I think I overlooked many times, and this time is the very first time I really didn't just want to watch it, because this is one of my comfort movies, because it's so heartwarming, that final act sequence, and that it really makes you feel a lot of things. But like, this is the first time where I really paid a lot of attention to every single detail within the film. My girlfriend saw me taking notes through the entire movie, and I was like constantly holding my phone to the side, taking notes, being like, oh, look at this, look at that, because like there's so much foreshadowing in this movie that I can't express how much I love. And I don't know. Again, we're going on so many tangents. I think we do this every week because we just have such an expressive love for these movies. But Your Name is one of these movies that will always hold this very, very special place in my heart for its use of foreshadowing and use of detail and use of all this stuff that Mikoto Shinkai really expresses. So.
Absolutely. My favorite little bit that really doesn't get done a lot is at the beginning, I talked about earlier how Mitsuha doesn't stand up for herself. She's not the bravest. She doesn't have the confidence that Taki has. And I feel like with that type of setup, and especially with how movie tropes go, it would be so easy to have this movie end with Taki. Okay, for context, there's a giant meteor that comes in and destroys Mitsuha's town, and everyone dies. And but they're given one day to try to save it. And I feel like with modern tropes, it would have been so easy for Taki, while he was in Mitsuha's body, to go and save the town and have everything go back to normal, the hero heroine save the girl type thing. But it's nothing like that at all, and it's beautiful. Taki fails to save the town. Blatantly, he fails. He goes up to Mitsuha's dad and he's like, "We have to do this," and he's like, "No, get out of my face." Like it's a
sending you to a mental hospital.
Yeah, and then Mitsuha's the one that saves the town. It's her town. She's the one that saves it, and that is just the growth of she's now confident and able to stand up for something that sounds so outlandish. She has to tell an entire town, like, "Hey, all research is wrong. There's a meteor that's going to split and it's going to kill all of us." And everyone looks at her like she's crazy, but she still goes through with it. And just that confidence is beautiful, and it's so fun to watch.
Absolutely. And I think that that moment, especially when she finally confronts her father again, when her grandma's there and her little sister are there after Taki already went to her, and she scolds him, and she goes up to him. I can't remember. She thinks she slaps him, but it's this idea of she ends up saving the town, and it's very also important that Taki recognizes that he couldn't do it. He couldn't, and no matter how much preparation he did, he couldn't save the town.
Yeah,
and I think that that's a way though is that this film is all about that shared experience of love and care for one another, because we presented that they're sharing their lives. They're half of one another. They are half of one another. And then we get to the part of the film where they stop switching, and they are in that longing of solitude and not really knowing. Mitsuha goes to Tokyo, and he doesn't recognize her, and it's like she's lost and alone, and she cuts her hair, and she ends up dying literally the next day. And in the same way as that, Taki can't find a job, graduates, doesn't date again. He ends up losing, he can't find a job. He's feels so solitude and alone.
Yeah.
But when they were paired together, it was when they're the strongest. You see Taki try his hardest to absolutely find her, and when they were together on that hill at twilight is when they were the strongest together. They were laughing with each other. They were having the moment of their lives just for each other to lose it at that same moment. And that moment of twilight is very much paired, because the next time they see each other is at kind of the opposite of twilight, where it's almost midday, and they finally come together without that sense of temporariness. Midday is that where everything is existing, and it's kind of cute because it's visuals and stuff like that. There is a little lens flare that is done on the railing that mimics that sunset that happens.
Yeah.
So. And one thing I also really like about this film, the only fictional place in this entire movie is Itomori. It doesn't exist, obviously. They don't want to have there's never been a meteor that crashed into Tokyo, but everything that is real exists in this movie. And all those locations in Tokyo exist, and they were animated very carefully. Mm-hmm. And even Itomori is based on small towns, small shrines, and stuff like that. That is very detailed, and I really want to acknowledge that in the film, because I think attention to detail like that is beautiful. But again, that pairing of each other is what is important in this movie, because so much of that past that is also experienced, because the grandma mentions I think I've had these dreams once before. I recognize this. And then your mom had these, and then my mom had these. It's this ancient history that is experienced in the Mitsuha's family, that generational thing where Taki is that new person, that introductory person, because he doesn't have that experience. He represents modernity while she represents the past.
Absolutely. And I think my favorite bit about the grandma being your mom had this, I had this, is it actually goes back to real world scenarios. There's a century-old folktale that can be found in China, Vietnam, Korea, and Japan called The Red Thread of Fate. And it's perfect. We haven't talked about it much yet, but at the beginning of the film, we see Mitsuha goes to Tokyo to meet Taki, and it's one of the first scenes, and the audience, we have no idea what's going on, right? We're thrown right into the middle of it, and Taki's given this red cord that he wraps around his arm, and another setup is that same cord is in Mitsuha's hair every time she goes back, and it's basically, to break down the Red Thread of Fate, it's basically a red cord connecting two individuals to destined to be together, who are each other's soulmates, and the strings connect them. And it's a beautiful tale. I'd highly encourage everyone to look further into it than we're going to discuss. Just it goes pretty deep. It's really beautiful.
We haven't really talked about that, but that is, I'd say that is the knot that ties this whole film together, is that red thread of 3, because we get introduced to the braided cords very early in the film. Alongside that idea of that, we just see that red thread, that red braided cord on his wrist and then on her hair, is that she makes these, and her grandma is like, this is musubi, that time is interwoven, that time is connecting all people, that the Tsuchikamezake is connecting us to us and nature, us and another person, us and family, time, everything is interwoven with each other, and ultimately you will find someone that you'll be interconnected with. And every time that we see Taki in the past, or in, I guess, the future, we see that interwoven cord on his wrist, and then we see that anytime we see Mitsuha, it's in her hair, and it's kind of like very underlying, because you don't really realize it. Like, Taki's always wearing his uniform, so it's always covered, and then he's always wearing his like suit for work, so it's covered, and then when he starts like not necessarily undressing himself, but like wearing shorter sleeves, you see it, and it's very apparent, and that red is very much there. Absolutely. And it's in her hair, and then when she cuts her hair, like, it's when the first time she loses it, because at that point she gave it to him, the past version of Taki.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's again the lowest point of the movie, because that is when Mitsuha literally dies.
Yes.
She dies. She doesn't have that red thread in her hair. Her hair's cut. Taki doesn't remember her. She doesn't have that cord that interconnected with each other. And then all of a sudden, when he goes back into the past and finds her, he gives it back to her to tie on that hair back, and she ends up saving the town. And then in the end of the film, we see that it's on her hair when they meet each other on the stair steps once more.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. Again, this film, and we've talked again a lot about how beautiful this movie is, and this might come from lack of knowledge or lack of experience, but I think that this movie is so important to what love really is. And as someone like how it's not like it's such a complex thing, and so many movies talk about love, but one thing that I think that Makoto Shinkai does more better than anyone else is he shows this love, like this care for love.
Yeah.
And so it's not like, oh, I immediately fall for you, you are the love of my life, like, oh, he's the prince coming to save me. It is this developed experience, this desire, rather than like this, oh, I'm gonna fall for this person immediately, this prince, or like this like foregone, like, oh, I'm the quirky princess that you need to fall for me. It's like, it's developed. It is not immediate, because Taki goes on dates. He has a crush with this other girl, like, and Mitsuha, like, she doesn't express that she really has interest in any guys, and then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but we get this developed experience of like them being in each other's lives and like learning with each other, and we really don't see that there's a love for each other until it's developed, because he lives in her life and he realizes, like, I care about this person deeper than simply like this crush or this idea, because I've now been on a date with someone, and I finally realized that I have had this longing desire, this thing I can't put down, I can't realize until it's been told to me, like that dream sequence, that I have a care for someone.
It's not just that Taki loves Mitsuha. It goes way beyond that. These are real characters, you know? He calls Mitsuha's grandma. He loves Mitsuha's sister. He's very in her friends. He's very engulfed in her lifestyle, and everyone that she loves and holds dear, he holds just as close out of love for Mitsuha. And it's beautiful how and I know we just talked about how there's like threads of fate and they're destined to be together, but like it's still a choice, you know? It's still like Taki goes on other dates, and it's not like our destiny is written in the stars, so we have to be together, let's fall in love instantly through a 20-second montage. It's through the course of an hour they fall in love. They really don't express the love for each other until pretty deep into the film.
Until the climax, I'd argue, like where they're on top, like, and it doesn't feel like it's coming out of nowhere or like princess saving the prince or prince saving the princess. It is this developed feeling, and I don't know. It also comes from this idea of Mitsuha comes from this broken idea of family, and we don't even see Taki's family, and so like Mitsuha has a really strained relationship with her father, and obviously her mother has passed away, and we see Taki's father once, like in the entire movie, and it doesn't really seem like there's that much care, and I think that it comes that they both have this desire to love, because Mitsuha realizes that her father really never either loved her mom too much or didn't love her enough, because he kind of abandons the family in like preparation of being a mayor. And I think that seeing each other in that light of their day-to-day lives, and that idea of living within each other's experience, being half of one another, is what develops that love over a long period of time. And then again, of course, we have the interwoven red thread of fate. That is throughout the entire film, and then again at the climax of the film when Taki faints and we see all of Mitsuha's life, and we see her mother's death and her father leaving, we see all that, and we understand that experience, but that isn't what made Taki fall for her. What made Taki fall for her was that she not only had a beautiful life in her own right, and he cared for what she existed as and how she was a human being, but also because Taki, because she cared for Taki's life, and she cared about him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one thing I've also not talked about in this movie at all enough, when we maybe mentioned it, is the music.
The music.
Radwimps.
It is gorgeous. The intro song we played at the beginning was from the movie, and I'll play another song when we close out. I don't really know how to like break down this music as much as I could for How to Train Your Dragon. But I like.
Well, there is leitmotifs in this one as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so Taki and Mitsuha have a theme of each other, and it's so. Ultimately, this film is kind of broken down into two sequences in the same sense that how I talked about Walter Mitty, where there's a score and there's also a soundtrack.
Yes.
And so this film has two big song sequences, or three big song sequences of actual lyrics that literally speak about what the film is about. Literally, the lyrics in Japanese mention dreaming, mention love, mention red threads of fate, which are, bam, right in your face. Like, okay, this is about
what the movie's about.
Yeah, this is,
Mr. Green with the dagger in the living room. There it is.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
There, you know?
It's the beginning of the film, and we have those three sequences. One is at the beginning of the movie, where we get introduced to our characters, and we get introduced to the beautifulness of the score, the soundtrack, seeing the visuals, all this stuff. Another one is during a montage sequence. Where it's almost comical. It's very not almost. It is comical. We see Taki grab Mitsuha in her body, just like that stuff. We see that Mitsuha doesn't know how to do a waiting. We see Taki be forceful. We see Taki not be forceful, be good at basketball, and like all the guys are oogling over Mitsuha, all this stuff. And we see this comicalness, this comedy, and that song is paired with it, and it speaks to that. It's like the lyrics are about switching each other's lives, like how like each other's lives are most important, and like the misexperiences of each other is hard. And then the other one is in the climax sequence when Taki is falling, and there's that red thread of fate. And then there's obviously the credits, but we get this Itomori's soundtrack in the same sense we get Burke's. Itomori has its own song, and it's very much mellow and like calm. And then we get a kind of opposite sense, but also calmness of Taki in Tokyo's soundtrack. And they both have this idea of melancholy day-to-day life feeling. Yeah. And then each of the characters also have their own soundtrack. And then it all culminates into this final sequence of, I think it's called Dream Lantern. I can't remember the song's exact name, but when they're on top and at twilight.
Yes, that's when their themes merge.
And
it's gorgeous.
It merges Tokyo's, Itomori's, Mitsuha's, and Taki's themes all in one together, all using all those leitmotifs between each other.
They're all threaded together.
And literally with a red thread of fate. And the one thing about that, though, is that Radwimps, they have scored every single film of Makoto Shinkai since, and these people they weren't scores. They didn't do. This is their first movie score. They were just J-pop artists that were told that, hey, we need to make a movie. And Makoto Shinkai was heavily involved in like the making of the orchestral soundtrack, and they have then proven themselves about making a beautiful score that is also paired with very fun soundtracks that are honestly very fun to listen to. Like it's upbeat, it's fun, and then sometimes it's damn tearjerkers.
Yeah, they're in my playlist. I listen to them on repeat all the time.
Man, I don't know any of the words, but you can feel the emotions as expressed through the lead singers in this film, and I don't know. And again, it's also the thing with Radwimps is they're a male and female led band. You don't really hear the female much in this film, but they are a male and female led band, and I think that again it's another pairing thing of like. There's small things that I might be looking into too much, but I can't express that. I think that everything has a detail in this movie, to the score, to the visuals, to everything, and so much of this movie is loved for, and I don't know. I love it so much. Also, this is something minor. So this is very tangential, not about music at all, but I just remember this all of a sudden. The truck that Taki drives in is seen multiple times in the past of Mitsuha, because
really?
It's very, very small, but you see this truck one time drive past, and you're like, I didn't realize it until I watched it this time.
With the guy at the diner.
The guy at the diner.
Yeah.
You just see that guy's truck drive past, and I'm like, that's that guy's truck.
You're blowing my mind.
Yeah,
man.
I'm like, oh my god,
that's so sick.
And then there's small things like that, where we see Tessie, and what was the other character's name? Tessie and Mitsuha's friends.
Yes, yeah.
Mitsuha's friends, Tessie and the other one. We see this express like banter with each other to the point when we see them in the future, we see they also have that same banter and that same expressed love, and we see their names in the past, how they were put next to each other as well. Ultimately, again, I can't express that this movie is foreshadowing to the highest extent, and like more than any other film, because I think that's what this film is about. It's about going to the future, going to the past, and it's a movie that has all of this like time travel aspects to it to the best extent. Like it's not like it's about time travel, we're changing the past. It is literally a film about love and trying to save, and it doesn't feel like it uses time travel like extensively or horribly.
No, I think this is one of my favorite instances of time travel in a movie. I get exhausted by time travel movies, but this one, like, there's very distinct rules and it follows them, and that's one of the hardest things to do if you're gonna have a fictional world. You need to have rules and follow them, and if you don't follow the rules, then you're Star Wars, and you make me upset.
Yes.
Yes. Before we talk about voice acting real quick, do you want to divide the listening base for a second?
Sure, yeah.
Sure. Did you watch it subbed or dubbed?
I watched it subbed.
Subbed? Okay.
Did you watch it dubbed?
Well, here's the thing, man.
Hey.
The first time I watched it was over a year ago, and I watched it subbed. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And little fun fact about me, personal anecdote. You will probably never in your life meet someone who's more dyslexic than me. Like, I can't read at all. Letters, I memorize shapes, okay? Like, I can't read at all. So when I was going to watch it, I was like, you know what? If I'm not going to focus on anything other than the bottom third of the screen trying to read the subtitles if I don't do this dubbed. So I watched it dubbed. And I know dubbed anime has, like, people are like, oh, the American voice actors don't care and there's no original intent. And you would be absolutely right. However, I think that having seen both the subbed and the dubbed, one thing that I noticed a lot is how incredible every single voice actor is in this movie. Like, something that I love pointing out to my friends when I watch movies with them and I annoyingly point out random things, is you can really hear people smile in the booth. And even in a language that I can't understand whatsoever, like, at all, you can hear just in the inflection in their voice how they're smiling, they're happy, they're crying. Like, you can hear the smile. Really think about
screams,
that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
as well.
And it's also done in the American dub, and that's what I liked a lot about it, because you don't always get that.
I have seen this film in dub with my buddy Sam, and because he is an adamant hater of anime. He hates anime. He's only been able to watch Attack on Titan and Your Name, essentially.
Okay.
And he I was like, this is his first introduction to anime, and I was like, well, watch it dubbed. It's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to get into. I mean, I watched my first anime dubbed as well.
Absolutely.
Like, literally my first 4 or 5 anime, I watched them dubbed. And I think that the reason that this film exceeds in its dubbing is the same reason that Weathering with You and Suzume has succeeded in its dubbing, is because I really think that, I don't know, I can't attest if this is true or not, but I really think that Makoto Shinkai must have been in the booth with them, or me somewhat directing him, or having somewhat of his influence in the direction. Because I've heard this dub, and as someone who is so used to dubbing being done by American studios, I don't think this one was done by that. Because for those who don't know, I'm going to get super nerdy here. The reason that dub is very often poorly done is because it is done by the American studios that release anime to an American populace rather than the Japanese studios themselves that made the anime.
Absolutely.
And so you get like the dubs of like they're literally their voices not matching, or the characters feeling like their inflections are off, or like the emotion isn't there because there's no director that really cares about the anime as much as the director of the anime was. It's just someone that like, I need to make a quick buck. This is your voices, just act angry, and they're like okay, and stuff like that, instead of actually just trying to find the character motivations. And I think that this film, it succeeds in its dubbing because of Makoto Shinkai's influence, and maybe the studio of Japan's that made this film's influence. And one thing additionally is that the Japanese voice actors, that's a really good expression. Is like you can hear them smile, and one thing you can hear them cry, and you can really feel that emotion. Like when Mitsuha falls down that hill, and then she looks at the "I love you." Oh my god, I'm gonna start crying. It's such an emotional sequence. She chokes up and she goes like, "How can I remember your name with this?" And like, and it's this held back like feeling of, man, like I don't know how to feel like this, just like, because that is so emotional, because he wrote down the one thing that he was feeling the most, but it was the worst thing that he could have wrote down.
Absolutely.
And it hurts because you know that he needed to write that, and writing his name wouldn't have done anything, and that was the only thing he could have wrote, is that I love you, and that feeling, that emotion is also done really well in English. And my girlfriend and I talked about it afterwards. Like we both cried at that sequence. I've cried at it every single time. Who did you watch this with? Did you watch it alone this time?
I soloed this adventure.
You soloed this adventure.
This is one of those movies where it's like I don't know. Okay, so I'm not a huge crier. It's not something that I really do. But sometimes I'll watch movies and I'll just think, dang, I really should be crying right now, you know?
Yeah.
Like you just have that feeling in your gut of like, you know? So whenever I watch movies like that, so it's either like this or Weathering with You or
How to Train Your Dragon 3.
Like those I have to do solo because then it's like you need a moment to just like turn off the music, turn off all the lights in the room, and just sit and stare at a wall and just think for 20 minutes, you know?
Yeah, no.
And that's something I can't really do with people there.
No, absolutely. There's many films that I'm like that with. Like, I don't think we're tangentizing into other movies right now, but like I don't think I'll ever be able to watch a movie like Marriage Story with anyone.
Oh yeah.
Because like that movie like kills me.
A Silent Voice.
Oh my god.
I will never watch A Silent Voice with another human being.
Yeah, that
ever.
movie just like it kills you. These movies of this care for emotions. And these are so soft. Sorry, I keep pushing them, but these care for emotions is really felt, and I think Makoto Shinkai keeps doing that. Like Suzume is even sad. Weathering with You is sad. Garden of Words was sad, and I think it's not trying to make it sad, but he's trying to illustrate the pain that comes with love.
Yeah, it's you might be listening to this and you've never seen the movie and you're like, wow, you guys are bumming me out. But it's not that type of sad. It's not sadness at the loss of something. It's different. I can't really articulate what I'm kind of thinking right now. It's a sadness in a way where it's like it's beautiful. It's the sadness you get like, I don't know. I watch a lot of nature documentaries and I'm emotional. So so it's like, you know, man, you know, like watching a baby sea turtle hatch on the beach and you're like, I'm watching this on a TV screen. It was filmed months ago, but like you still get that. This is a horrible example, but
no, I get it.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's this sadness that this film expresses is that, I don't know. It's this longing desire. It's paired with the themes of the film of like you understand the feeling deep down, but you don't know where it comes from.
Absolutely.
And it's like it feels good and hurts at the same time.
100%.
And I think that it is expressed so well and so beautiful. And Makoto Shinkai, I don't know, he really understands how to make these emotions hurt while also paying off them by making you feel good. So we see at the end of the film, and it's in my opinion, the best sequence in the movie. And I hate that it's in all the posters because it does spoil it. And again, we've talked all these spoilers. You can still watch the movie. It's in Japanese. It's in English. You won't remember anything we said. But if you haven't seen it before, watch it. But he has a sequence of them on the stairs, and this is another foreshadowing thing, but he says Kimi no Nawa, which in Japanese means "What is your name?"
Yeah.
Which is the whole name of the film.
Roll credits.
Roll credits, and they say that at the top of the stairs with each other, and that's another foreshadowing thing. The entire movie, it's always asking, "What is your name? Hey, what's your name? Mitsuha? Oh, my name is Taki." Like when they meet other people, "Oh, my name's Mitsuha, my name is Taki." Like when they talk to each other, "My name's Mitsuha, my name's Taki." And then Mitsuha, he keeps saying it to himself. She keeps saying Taki to himself. Ultimately, for them always destined to forget until they come to that point, and you just want them to say, "What is your name?" My name's Mitsuha, my name's Taki, but it just leaves it off at that for you to imagine what happens next.
Absolutely.
This is a little bit of a spoiler, but it makes me happy. If you've seen Weathering with You, Taki's in that.
Is he?
Yeah, he is. And he's wearing a wedding ring.
No way.
Yeah, he's in it.
I love Weathering with You.
Yeah, he's in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
So Taki's in it, and he's wearing a wedding ring.
That's okay. I was just gonna say, I love how there's so many unknowns at the end of this movie. You know, I feel like
that's the only way it's known is because you have to watch Weathering with You, and it's like a little tiny glimpse at his hand.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
Yeah, my girlfriend said that she watched Weathering with You before she's watched Your Name, and so obviously you will never know because Taki's not even mentioned by name. He's a character that has voice lines in the film though. It's when they go to that one house and the main characters do give rein to someone, and Taki's there, and he talks about like his past and stuff like that. It's very offhandedly, but doesn't talk about like anything there. And on his left hand is a wedding ring.
Wow, yeah, I've seen Weathering with You so many times.
Also a good movie.
Yeah, I saw that long before I saw Your Name. That's so cool. Yeah.
And Suzume also has references to them as well, both of the movies.
What?
Yeah, it's kind of implied that these three movies are in the same universe.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I'm glad they don't, because there's so many loose threads, ironically enough, that it would have been so easy to make a sequel, and I'm glad they didn't.
Never make a sequel to Your Name.
Never make a sequel to Your Name, and I'm glad they didn't, because I know how easy, especially movie companies in the States are like, ooh, let's make a Toy Story 5. No,
They are making one though.
Yeah,
but also this
make
is
a
something
Toy
that is
Story
kind of
5.
sad, and I'm very trepidatious with this. They are making a live action Your Name.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah, they are making a live action Your Name. Very trepidatious. There's not really much information regarding it, but they have announced that is something in the works with Disney.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah. What we're gonna talk about besides voice acting right after that?
Well, back to the dub. I think one of my favorite bits about it, kind of piggybacking on what you said earlier, is I love Studio Ghibli with all of my heart so much. However,
Yeah.
It's so obvious that in all the dubs they're just like, they do what I call the Illumination route, where they're like, oh, A-tier celebrity, how about you come voice this? They're not voice actors. Voice acting is so different than traditional acting. I'm not going to say which one's harder, but it's voice acting. And but you can't get A-tier celebrities to do voice acting because it's a whole different craft. And with all of these movies, like Your Name, Weathering with You, you notice like it's not a very well-known like dub cast, and I love it. It's perfect.
No, absolutely, because you can tell that it's not just like, all right, we called we called Tom Holland in. All right, he's 10 lines today, okay, and he phones him in. If you've ever watched the Secret World of Arietti dub, it's Tom Holland, and he's not good in it. No offense to Tom Holland, I think he's a fine actor, but still,
yeah,
maybe. But like at the end of the day, it's these ideas of like these A-list actors, and you see that some do have that care, like Christian Bale in Howl's Moving Castle.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
He's like, I'm gonna like dedicate myself to this, but then other people are like, it's a paycheck.
Yeah. And it's so hard to sit in a booth and like really put everything you have into these lines when sometimes you're not even building off anyone. Sometimes all of these lines are recorded separately, you know?
You're recording the climax day 2.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I need to have all this emotions for a character I can't see.
Yeah.
And some voice actors and most voice actors that aren't A-list celebrities care. And obviously
it's beautiful.
Japan has a very high like culture around voice acting. I mean, animation is their biggest strong suit for filmmaking besides Akira Kurosawa.
Yes, yeah.
And so you really see that they have a care for voice acting because it is something that they've expressed that like they're the best at, because anime is some of the best storytelling that exists, and you see that these voice actors really want to make that impact onto the audience, and they get trained for it, years and years of training on it, and that's their only job, and they're paid well because of it. Voice actors in America aren't really that paid well if they're not A-list celebrities, so it's a hard job to really care about. And so I think that showing this dedicated level of care for these characters is important, and I think that it is done extremely well in Your Name.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you have any closing remarks you want to give before we sign off?
Yes. We are all connected. Whether you like it or not, you are connected to the one random person across the world, probably. You're connected to everyone in the world as it goes. Express love for everyone around you. Express care for everyone around you. And have love for the world.
That was beautiful, man.
Thank you.
Wow, I don't really know if I could top that. I think what I'm gonna say is, I know my grandma listens to the show. I'm talking to you. Watch the movie. Everyone listening, just watch it. It's gorgeous. I know we say this every time, but I really mean it this time. Go watch the movie.
Yep.
And thank you for listening to Jumpcut, and we'll be back next week.
Next week.
Have a good one, you guys.
Have a good one. Bye.